let's go ahead and kick this off. 49ers versus Jets. We have breaking news. The 49ers still kick ass at football. It's, I mean, it almost feels like I feel a little spoiled because, like, over here, it's like, I don't know. There are years where you just expect to win games. And like last season, you and I both know, or like everybody who tuned into the stream knows that like I picked the 49ers to win every single game. We'll see if it plays out that way again this season, but I had like my doubts kind of going into the game about like, man, is it going to feel like a Super Bowl hangover? But the 49ers just sort of like maybe on the first series, maybe, started off a little bit slow. Like I'd say both teams like started off stronger on defense than they did on offense, but the 49ers did not have Christian McCaffrey and they still put up like 32 points. Player of the game, I would have to say, is a toss up between Deebo Samuel or Jordan Mason. And Jordan Mason is one of those players that for years I have just been wishing that he can find his way onto the football field because he's very talented. He's an aggressive runner. And I mean, before the game, we all got the notification that McCaffrey was not going to play. And once I heard that, I mean, I thought it's smart. Why would you push him to come back when, like, the news, like, what was it, earlier this week? They were saying it's not just a calf strain, it's also like an Achilles sort of issue. Like,
right.
We in the Bay Area have seen firsthand that if it's somewhere along the lines of that, you probably don't want to push it. Like Kevin Durant in the playoffs in 2019, obviously that's basketball, this is football, but still same thing. Professional athletes who are at the top of their game sort of push it through a little bit of injury and then they never come back the same. We'll see. Like, I know Dre Greenlaw going into the Super Bowl had Achilles tendonitis, and I'm not sure if that was the Achilles that ended up rupturing, but it's one of those things where it's better safe than sorry. I think the 49ers are a better team having won this game without Christian McCaffrey than if they would have, like, the risk reward just wasn't there. They could have, and they did win this game without Christian McCaffrey because Jordan Mason is just that good. But I do have a couple notes. Mike, do you have any thoughts before I get into my notes of the game?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, Jordan Mason and Deebo, I think the Niners defense played exceptionally well, especially against the run. I think to what you just said, as far as, without McCaffrey, like they were able to get it done with Jordan Mason. I think that says a lot about Jordan Mason as a runner and as a running back who has good vision, but he's a powerful runner too, right? And he's got some burst to him. Like, he's a good running back. I think it also says a lot about Kyle Shanahan. I just think he's the type of coach where, you're going to have the occasional setbacks and he is able to coach the offense to persevere, and I think that showed tonight because the Jets defense, that is no slouch of a defense. I know they're without Hassan Reddick, and I don't know how much Quinnen Williams, he was in, right?
Yeah, no, he was in, and then on one of the first drives of the game, he sort of bullied Colton McKivitz on like a pass blocking, it was a pass rush, and he was able to put pressure on Purdy, and then literally like the first note that I have under my notes is like Colton McKivitz is still not good, at least in pass blocking. You know what I mean? I think that is the area of his game that will be the hardest to improve, and if it's going to happen, we have yet to see.
Yeah, I just think the Niners defense looked impressive. The offense looked shockingly impressive considering it felt like it wasn't just McCaffrey that was not playing in this game, because at times it felt like Ayuk was not playing when he was literally not on the field, but also just, what did he end up with? Like maybe 3 targets?
Talking about Ayuk? I want to say he had 4 targets because in the first half, I want to say he had 2 drops and then probably ended out with like 2 or 3 catches. So maybe 4 or 5 targets.
Yeah. Well, it was a game in which going into the game I felt, well, once McCaffrey was announced as out, I thought the Jets were going to win this game, and I ended up switching my pick to the Jets, and Kyle Shanahan and Jordan Mason and Deebo Samuel said, no, we got this, and the Niners got the W.
Mm-hmm. Real quick before I get into my notes, I do want to shout out Fonzie, who's in the chat, and Fonzie has been one of the day one viewers. Fonzie says, "Bang bang, Niner gang." Mason for sure, yeah. Mason was probably the player of the game because this was his first career NFL start, and he had nearly 200 yards, and maybe it was closer to 175, but I thought that he looked good, and like Mike said, obviously the Shanahan system helps, but I think that Jordan Mason could start at running back for a lot of teams in the NFL. I think he's that talented, and
I think he
maybe
could
we'll
start for
see.
the Raiders.
Yeah. Although there is a running back on the Raiders that I do want to discuss, and I think maybe you can probably think of who it is, but we'll get to that later. So if you're a Raider fan tuning in, stay tuned. We will be talking about the Raiders after we're done with the 49ers. So let me get into what stood out to me, in terms of the game, where I just I was on my phone, Google Docs, took a couple notes. So, like I said, Colton McKivitz, I still don't think is that good at pass protection, at least. So keep in mind, these notes are going to be in sequential order of when I saw it in the game. So I did have that there was a rough drive for Diamador Lenore, on the first Jets touchdown drive. Yeah, no, he probably had a couple. He had a play where he gave up a third down reception to Garrett Wilson, and then later on, right before the touchdown and on the touchdown play. All right, right before the touchdown, the wide receiver went in motion, and then you see Lenore sprinting to that side, and he just overran it, gave up the inside, and that put the Jets on the goal line. And then Breece Hall, I think, was able to carry it in for a touchdown on the following play. And Diamador Lenore, you can see that he sees exactly where the run is going to go, but he just doesn't fill the gap or help. I'm not necessarily sure if that's his assignment, in that particular situation, but I mean, it didn't look good. So I'm sure that they'll clean that up in film, and he'll do better, because I think Lenore's a good player. But yeah, another thing that stood out to me was Ayuk, like I said, had a few drops in the first half. Mainly, I mean, the first one was kind of a good play by the defender, but I think Ayuk probably could have hauled that in. And it just doesn't look good because he held out during training camp, and it's I feel like that's a ball that Ayuk can normally bring in. And then there was the play that Purdy threw to. It was going to be a diving catch, but Ayuk, it hit him in the hands while he was diving, and it was a hard play to make, but it was definitely a catchable ball, I would say. And then Deebo had a great game, as I put on my notes. Jordan Mason had a great game. Juwan Jennings, there was a moment where he was getting tackled, and it was clearly a hip drop, and it showed that Jennings, he got up and he was kind of
hobbled.
He hobbled, and I don't know. The NFL did implement a ban on hip drop tackles, and I feel like that's as clear as it can get.
Yeah,
That was
I even
pretty
texted
clear.
the group chat. Yeah.
Yep. And the body weight was shifted onto Jennings's legs, and he literally got hurt, and it wasn't called. So this seems like one of those penalties that's just going to be called when it benefits the Chiefs, or sorry, when it benefits whoever, right?
Right. Unlike the ever so popular this week, what was it? Every team was getting called for what
Illegal formation.
Illegal formation. Yeah, every team. It was like, what the hell's going on this week, dude?
Yeah, and then so Fonzie says Debo literally went and put a chain around Jordan Mason's neck after the game. That's the player of the game right there. Yeah,
That
I'd say I mentioned both Debo and Mason. Debo definitely like carried the 49ers in terms of like the wide receivers went today. He had to have led the 49ers in receptions easily today, or tonight I should say. And then Jordan Mason just he picked up the slack on in wake of McCaffrey's absence. So yeah, Jordan Mason, I would give the game ball to him, but Debo also stepped up too. And I was wearing Debo's
yeah.
jersey tonight, so I sort of anticipated that. Mike was hoping for a big game. I think I predicted in the preview, if you want to go back, I predicted that Debo would probably have a big game because of Brandon Ayuk kind of holding out. It's probably an easy prediction to make. So, you don't have to go back.
I sent you a tweet that was interesting, but on your Twitter, not the Silver and Gold. Denny Carter at CD Carter 13 tweeted, Jordan Mason said the team told him Friday that he would start Monday night. And then he basically says after that Jordan Mason probably was not supposed to say that. And Ted Nguyen quote tweeted it saying, yep, 49ers are going to get in some trouble. I'm not sure if they're actually going to get in trouble, but it's interesting that the Niners, perhaps you could say secretly planned on resting Christian McCaffrey when, they I don't know. It's just interesting that they told Mason on Friday, like, yeah, you're starting on Monday, and yet there was no news until like an hour before the game.
Well, it could
He
be
was
pretty easy.
questionable.
It could be pretty easy. The 49ers can just say, yeah, our plan was to start Jordan Mason, and we thought that we would be able to slowly work McCaffrey in, but his calf didn't feel right. So, yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things where I don't think there's going to be much there. I think it would be different if it was a situation like last year with Bijan Robinson where he did suit up and he was sick and that was unreported. So I don't know. I feel bad. I feel really bad for everybody who like did those special promotion pick'ems. Christian McCaffrey more or less than half a total yard. Like those are the gimmies, and a lot of people probably just smashed the over because they thought that he was going to play and probably got screwed over. So yeah.
Here, I just sent a tweet to the Silver and Gold Twitter. If you can just play it and read it, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. 1 second here. So this is from Kevin Kruger. So hold on. Do you want me to read this, or you want me to just play the clip?
I'll read it really quick. Jordan Mason was upset during the post-game press conference. After the game, he told reporters that he was told he was going to start on Friday. Kyle Shanahan was asked about this and said that this was not true. And then this video was Mason after all of that.
When did you find out that you'd be in the starting lineup?
That question right there is why I'm at. That's why I don't like really talking to media, because you say one thing wrong and then, I don't know. Just skip that question.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's definitely news to me. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I didn't get a chance to watch any of the post-game press conferences because, I was on my way home. I was at my girlfriend's house, and we were watching the game together. And I was like, well, let me rush home so we can do our stream. Pia's dad is tuning in. Mr. C says, good to have you guys back. Mike, how do you feel that the refs did on officiating the 49er game? What can the NFL do about the refs? Because I feel that it's not just the Niners they are messing up on.
Yeah, I mean, the big one for me was missing on the hip drop tackle. That was one, like I said, I was the one that texted the group chat, like, that was definitely a hip drop. And I didn't notice it in full, like, real speed. I noticed it on the replay in slow-mo when they were like, yeah, it looks like Jennings is injured. Let's roll back the play. And I'm like, dude, he just held his waist and pulled himself up from the bottom. You know, it was
Yeah.
like telltale. I was like, come on now. I didn't notice any other like egregious penalties in this game. I kind of stopped watching around the end of the third quarter, kind of getting ready for the pod and getting my room situated and whatnot, getting ready for work this week. But I think my biggest issue with current day officiating, like, okay, week 1, the officiating was just full blown, you know, the I don't know why I keep forgetting the term, but lining up incorrectly.
The
Anyway.
illegal formations.
Illegal formation. Thank you. I don't know why that was such an emphasis this week. I don't know if they made a new rule in the offseason and it just kind of went over everybody's heads. And then, week 1 is like, whoa, they're really going on that one, aren't they? But for me, I think the biggest one is just it always seems like it goes in the Chiefs' favor. That's really the one that annoys me the most, is just when it's like Chiefs, big moment, fourth quarter, 2 minutes to go, they get the call in their favor, and it's like, bro.
Or call a timeout. The
Oh, yeah.
assistant coach calls timeout when they're not supposed to be able to, and they just give it to them. But one thing I will say is I think the illegal formation thing is probably an emphasis this year because everybody last year was pointing out that the Chiefs last year, Juwan Taylor would line up off the ball every single play, and he would false start every single play.
Yeah.
And I think Jason Kelsey talked about it where it's like, yeah, in slow motion, it's clear to see the false start, but in real time, it's like, it's kind of hard to, kind of close to see it. And
Yeah, I
maybe
know
Jason
Lane
Kelsey is
Johnson.
a little biased because that's his brother's team, but
well, also Lane Johnson on his team, the Eagles, he would do it too.
Yeah. So definitely, I think maybe they probably took a look at that, and it's like, well, we can't have everybody just complaining and everything. So we're gonna call this a lot early. Everybody's gonna forget about it at the middle of the season, and then in crunch time in a deep playoff game, it's gonna hurt one team, and then nobody's gonna stop talking about it. That's just how it's gonna end. That's how these things work, dude. So James says, real quick before James, I did have one more point on the officiating. They were holding Bosa a couple times. I noticed he gets held like every single game. But there was an unnecessary roughness call on an interception, and it was a horrible call. I want to say number 99, who I think that's Malik Collins. He really aggressively blocked an offensive lineman on the interception return, and they called that unnecessary roughness. But like, dude, I mean, the play is live,
right?
I think the ref just sort of threw the flag because like it happened right in front of him, and the dude just like got swept up off his feet. But I don't know. I was always taught head on a swivel. The play is not dead until they blow the whistle. So I thought that was a bad call as well. But James, I think, is talking about Jordan Mason here. He said be ready, not be ready for a full game. Don't know why you get punished for fantasy BS. Yeah, no, I kind of agree. I think it's like, McCaffrey was probably like nobody penciled him in as the starter. Everybody's just sort of assuming that he was going to start this game because he was going to play, but you never know. Were they going to ease him in? So I don't know. Come on. Like the 49ers were going to win this game either way. And this is, like James said, kind of fantasy football bullcrap. Although I do love me some fantasy football. Not this week, but definitely in years past.
Yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had depending on what the plan was there. Like, if the plan the whole time was, yeah, McCaffrey's not playing, like, I'm pretty sure you can label him out earlier. And then, there's game planning and all that stuff. I think just my hunch here, what probably happened was, like James is saying here, they probably told, or Kyle probably told Mason, be ready. to start on Friday. Like,
Mhm.
we are prepping just in case for you to start. It's entirely possible that Jordan Mason slipped up the truth of, yeah, I was told that I'm starting. And that's what Kyle told him because they wanted to give McCaffrey a rest break. Maybe. And if that's the case, like you said, I think that there can be some wording in there so that there isn't any like penalty or anything. It's just like, well, we were preparing for that or something like that. It could be that simple, but I don't know. I don't think this happens too often where it's like, yeah, the team knows ahead of time. It's usually like, no, we want McCaffrey to play. But in
Yeah.
this case, it's like, well, maybe they just determined like, I don't know with this calf. Let's just plan on not having you and yada yada yada. And obviously he didn't play. I don't know. It just okay. My assumption is that Mason slipped up. Kyle heard about it because he immediately got questioned about it afterwards, and he got pissed off because he's like, "Fuck! Why the fuck is Mason saying that? Like he can't say that or something." I don't know. That's
Yeah.
my assumption. Is once Kyle Shanahan got questioned, he went to Mason and said, "Dude, you cannot say that shit." And then Mason got flustered, like, "Fuck, I fucked up." And then in that video that we showed, it's like him just thinking, this is why I don't like talking to the media, which I totally understand, you know. And he doesn't want to get in trouble. This is supposed to be his big night, and now he's flustered, which sucks for him.
Yeah, it might not even have been Shanahan who told him. It might have been the PR director because, from what
Yeah.
I understand, the PR director sort of preps the person before they go up and do the interview. So, like, they probably asked Shanahan about it. And then, like, the PR director, after Shanahan was asked about it, was like, hey, don't say shit about it. Whatever you got to do to avoid the question, like, we'll handle it. So, yeah. James says the amount of holding on the line is ridiculous. Yeah, it's the NFL. Bosa was put into a headlock again and no call was made, says Fonzie. And, the last comment we'll take here before I finish my notes is, yes, when 99 got the unnecessary roughness penalty, the official got hit. I want to say that number 99 pushed the offensive lineman into the officials, so they got hit. But the final few things that stood out to me in the game were, Juszczyk was open a few times, and they finally were able to connect for a big pass to get to the goal line, and then later on, another thing that stood out was Diamador Lenore bounced back after I said that he had a rough, first drive, and he had a good tipped pass, on the Flanagan Foles interception. And under my notes there, that's when the bad unnecessary roughness call, transpired. And then,
Okay.
yeah, it was on the
Gotcha.
Flanagan Fowles interception. There was a 15-yard
Yes,
penalty.
that was a great play by Diamador Lenore.
Yep.
Great
And
play.
then there was a bad play on defense. It was an offsides, which Aaron Rodgers is notorious for. And then it was a touchdown pass to Alan Lazard. So we sort of got like a flashback to the Green Bay days between catching people offsides and then touchdowns to Alan Lazard. So and then there was a moment in the game where Trent Williams went to the locker room, but he ended up coming back without the training staff. So it seems like he was fine. Maybe he just had to use the restroom. I don't know. But my final note, the final thing that stood out to me was there was a 4th and 1 to force a turnover on downs, and there was a great play by Isaac Yiadom on that play. But besides that, the 49ers kicked ass, and we are going to, look on to the Vikings game in week 2. Before that, not to backtrack, sorry. Let me go ahead and share something because we mentioned it at the beginning of this topic. Mike changed his pick from the 49ers to the Jets, and I stuck with the 49ers. I was right, and Mike was incorrect. Hold on real quick. Is that no? Okay, I used a different green last year.
I should have never doubted Kyle Shanahan and his preparedness.
You should have never doubted the 49ers. It's probably February is probably the best bet to doubt them, under this regime, but anywhere else it's not a good bet to doubt them. So 49ers versus Vikings preview. We can go ahead and just, I think the 49ers are going to kill Sam Darnold this week.
Yeah, I think the Niners are going to beat the Vikings. They do have Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. I'm trying to think. I don't know who the right tackle is. If they have a respectable offensive line, I can see the Vikings putting up points, and by points I mean like 10 to 17 points, right? On the Niners, while the Niners probably put up, say, 28 plus, if I had to guess. But regardless, I think the Niners will win this game. I guess my point here is I don't know, something tells me Sam Darnold this season is not going to be as bad as we think. And
I'm not saying that he's going to be bad. I'm just saying that, the Niners are going to win.
Yeah. I just think Kevin O'Connell is a very impressive play caller and head coach. And I think, they've had a full offseason to prepare with Sam Darnold, and they have the best, I could say, probably the best wide receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. And, that'll mean something, although I think the Niners defense will still stop them most of the time. So,
dude, the Niners defense looked really good tonight. So if they can keep that up, I think my prediction is going to be that they're going to make Sam Darnold look bad. I just think that there's going to be those head scratching plays. And I don't know, who did the Vikings play this past weekend?
It's a good question.
Remember.
Was it the Titans? No, that was the Bears versus the Titans. Because I know Aaron Jones scored a touchdown. That's all I really remember.
Oh, they played the Giants. Yeah, so they beat up on a bad football team, with a bad quarterback. But So I don't know. Sam Darnold played well, but he's going to be facing a much stronger defense, and they're going to probably get down. But one thing I will say is last year I was pretty confident when the 49ers were going to play Monday Night Football against the Vikings in Minnesota, and this is going to be a game in Minnesota this year again. I was pretty confident that the 49ers were going to absolutely wreck the Vikings in that game because we were going to get Monday Night Kirk. But, Kirk Cousins played very well in that game. It was one of the few times that he actually played well on Monday night. And I don't know. I think Kirk Cousins is a much better quarterback than Sam Darnold. So I like the 49ers odds, I guess, because I think the Jets are I think they're a decent football team, and the 49ers took care of them pretty well. I don't have that high of expectations for the Vikings. The only thing that the 49ers kind of really have to look out for is Aaron Jones going to gash them kind of the same way that he did in the playoff game against the Packers this past season? Like, Aaron Jones played very well against the 49ers, and if he's got that kind of juice, I mean, maybe that offense can get something going, because guarding Justin Jefferson that's already going to be a handful. But I just see the 49ers pulling out this game. That's my prediction.
I think Jordan Addison isn't going to be playing in this one, and I don't even know who the Vikings starting tight end is right now without TJ Hawkinson. So I just think they're lacking in weapons right now. I think their best bet is getting Aaron Jones in space and probably throwing it to him. And Justin Jefferson will get his, but it won't be enough. So Niners will be winning this game.
All right, can we set that in stone? So we're both picking the 49ers. If McCaffrey doesn't play, are you gonna switch your pick again?
I am not switching this time. In theory, the Jets on paper are a playoff team, but they're missing Hassan Reddick, and I don't know. I guess I really do think the Niners defense played well, and it wasn't specifically that the Jets offense played like shit. But maybe
they were doing good on that second drive. The Jets,
the second drive was good. Yeah. It just, I don't know. It almost felt like between turnovers and coming out of halftime, the Niners receiving the ball, like there was a lot of time spent between the second and third quarter where the Niners just got the jump on them and got a big lead, and they were able to maintain that with Jordan Mason the rest of the way.
Yeah, I want to say the moment where the sort of momentum kind of shifted in the 49ers' favor and we never looked back was when Brees Hall fumbled and the 49ers
Yeah,
got it.
yeah,
So
right at the beginning
after
of the drive, yeah.
that's one of those where I mean it can change a game and it did because this could have been a very close game, but the 49ers just pulled away after that.
Yeah.
So and then I guess I can kind of squeeze this in, but shout out to Jake Moody. He was 6 for 6. He was 6 for 6 tonight after having sort of a rough season last year. And there was one kick that hit the left upright and bounced in. So
Yeah. I sent it to the group chat, but in our fantasy draft, I ended up going with Younghoe Koo, the Falcons kicker, just because of the name, and he's been notoriously good as a kicker. It's just, in theory, the Falcons offense is going to be good this year, and I'm starting to have slight doubts about that. But he hardly did anything in his matchup, whereas I almost picked Moody as my kicker in fantasy because I was like, damn, we got a bunch of Niner fans in this league and nobody's picked Moody yet. But I was like, nah, I'm going to go with the young, fresh offense with Kirk Cousins and yada, yada, yada. And if I had Moody, I would have won my matchup this week. So I'm like, damn.
yeah, but so here's the thing. This is the reason why Moody didn't get drafted in a lot of fantasy drafts. There's two reasons. One, because last year he was kind of inconsistent and
Yes.
looked like, every single time that he was going to line up and kick, it's like, this is not, I still felt that way today. I'm like, this is not a gimme, but he was money today. And another reason why he's not a very sort of
Sought after.
popular fantasy kicker is because the 49ers last year scored so many touchdowns and not a lot of field goals. So you kind of in fantasy have to kind of feel out, all right, which offense is good enough to get to field goal range but not score a touchdown. Because if you're scoring touchdowns, it's like 1 point here, 1 point there. Meanwhile, the kicker for the Seahawks, the Seahawks don't have the firepower to put it in the end zone every time, but shit, they get right in range and then they'll kick it. They'll play those kind of games with you. So that's sort of why Jake Moody got faded, I think, this year. And yeah,